There are many other ways to use AI, one of which is to use AI to help humans actually collectively problem solve and learn from each other, and also collectively learn from data, but interacting with each other. And we can use AI to do that at scale.
Welcome back to My Robot Teacher. I'm Sarah Senk.
And I'm Taiyo Inoue. And welcome to all our new listeners.
Yes, happy to say we had a big bump in subscribers earlier this month, presumably because we got mentioned and quoted in the LA Times.
Some nice self-promotion there, Sarah. Well done.
You know it.
I mean, to be clear, the article wasn't entirely about us.
No, not about us at all, but about Cal State faculty.
Right, true. The CSU, where Sarah and I are professors, released a report on one of the largest studies to date on AI in higher education. And the article was about how faculty opinions about AI in education are, shocker, very polarized.
Shout out to the San Diego State University researchers behind the survey, whose work, like ours, is supported by the California Education Learning Lab. We hope you too will check out our YouTube channel and leave a review on Apple Podcasts to drive more of that sweet, sweet internet traffic our way.
My God, you're a publicity monster.
Today's episode is about how to use AI to summon the wisdom of the crowd without the stupidity of the mob. And our guest today is Kim Polese, founder of CrowdSmartAI and Common Good AI, whose work explores how AI can be used not just to generate content or outsource drudgery, but to help groups reason together, deliberate more effectively, and work through complex problems by surfacing their collective intelligence. Taiyo, what is collective intelligence as you understand it?
Oh, God. You're really going to put me on the spot, aren't you?
You're so good when I put you on the spot.
Okay. I guess I think of collective intelligence as being like a group of minds that come together and function almost like a single distributed mind, capable of generating insights and ideas that no one person in the group could have generated or produced alone. You know, pulling out the intelligence of a collective can be really, really difficult. For instance, maybe individuals in the group bring different assumptions or different ways of thinking. I mean, just take our collaboration, for example, right? We bring this up a lot, but I'm in math and you're in comp lit. And we have really different, very different ways of thinking about stuff. But I think one of the really beautiful things about our collaboration is that we can kind of bounce ideas off of one another and cast these ideas through our respective disciplinary lenses. We can see beautiful new insights that I don't think either one of us could have come up with on our own.
I love that. So we're like a hive mind of two?
A hive mind? I mean, hive mind kind of has some negative connotations. I'm kind of thinking of the Borg here now.
Well, I do feel like you have infected my mind in some way. Like, I've noticed I use your mathy language for things. Like, if I have an expectation of what somebody's going to do and they really surprise me, I'll say, hold on, I'm updating my priors, which I now know from you is something from Bayesian statistics.
Absolutely. That's amazing. Yeah, exactly. When you come across new evidence, you update your priors to obtain a posterior distribution.
Oh my God, that's the other thing I'll say is I'm really interested in the outliers in this distribution. Like, again, these are words I would not have used 2 years ago, and I love it because having that language now makes my personal process of judging other people feel way more rigorous.
I mean, I have to say that the influence is totally mutual. I've mentioned now almost on a daily basis George Lakoff's Metaphors We Live By, right?
Oh, yeah.
And of course, Walter Ong's book, Orality and Literacy. That was a Sarah recommendation. You've also influenced like my understanding of language, particularly from a post-structural point of view.
You know, the hilarious part about that for me is that I think my understanding of post-structuralism has actually been deepened by you explaining to me the geometry of high-dimensional vector space when I asked you what the hell word embedding was. And I was like, how cool to have this new way of thinking about how meaning is relational. I think that speaks to what I find really great about interdisciplinary projects of any kind. Like, you learn new things, but you also learn new ways to think about the things that you've been thinking about forever.
Right. And we've talked on this podcast before about how many of the defining problems of the 21st centuries are compound problems, where no single discipline can see the whole thing, much less solve it alone.
I think we feel this really acutely as educators because universities are full of some seriously smart people, and yet universities are also super dysfunctional. Like, why is that? That's a problem I see of collective intelligence. Like, for a group of intelligent people to act intelligently, there are certain conditions that have to be in place. Like, they need to be focused around the same thing, the same priority or whatever. They need structures for working through the stuff that they disagree on. And they also need to feel like socially safe sharing those outlier ideas. Right? So our ability to do our little hive mind thing is at least partly due to the trust that we share as friends. Like, we have no shame in risking half-formed thoughts. And, we know there's not going to be strife if we ever say somebody that really offends the other one, because we're going to give each other the benefit of the doubt.
Oh my God. And how often do we offend each other, Sarah?
Okay, fair. I actually think one basis of our friendship is that we are not offended by the same things.
Wait, so are you saying that we laugh at the same things that offend other people? Is that what you mean?
That is that hive mind right there, parsing my deliberately ambiguous sentence. Exactly right.
Nice. Oh, man. But seriously, that's the larger question here. What happens when you try to scale that kind of generative exchange beyond two people and bring it to a large group of people who don't personally know each other? What would it take for a classroom or a university or a whole organization to think more intelligently together? And can AI help groups surface not just the knowledge each person already holds, but the new insight that emerges between people when the conditions are right?
And so that brings us again to our guest, Kim Polese, who is a longtime technology leader and, as I said earlier, the co-founder and executive chairman of CrowdSmartAI, which helps organizations gather and analyze large amounts of group input and identify patterns in how people are thinking. CrowdSmart draws on some of the same underlying advances that ChatGPT has, but the aim is different. Instead of generating answers based on training on a massive corpus of internet text, this technology is designed to listen to like a massive group conversation, map the ideas that people are contributing, and then track patterns of agreement and disagreement and emerging themes to help surface what the group seems to know and what it's still working through. Kim is also the co-founder of Common Good AI, which is a nonprofit initiative that brings together similar AI-enhanced deliberation tools into civic life with the goal of helping polarized communities identify common ground and work through shared problems.
Earlier in her career, Kim worked at Sun Microsystems, where she led the launch of Java in the mid-1990s. She also co-founded Marimba and served as co-founder and CEO of SpikeSource. She has held leadership roles across technology and public policy organizations, including the Obama administration's Innovation Advisory Board, the Public Policy Institute of California, TechNet, and the Silicon Valley Leadership Group. She also co-teaches Lean Launchpad at UC Berkeley's Haas School of Business. Please enjoy the interview.
Kim, thank you so much for joining us today. Can you tell us a bit about what first got you interested in AI and how you started working in this industry?
Well, it started when I was 10 years old and actually encountered ELIZA for the first time. So ELIZA was a program written in the 60s that was essentially the first chatbot. It was a psychologist or a therapist. It was acting like a therapist. And I was a 10-year-old kid. My mom would take me up to the Lawrence Hall of Science in Berkeley.
You're kidding.
And
That's amazing.
There was this old mainframe in the basement, this dusty old mainframe, running this application called ELIZA. And I would have conversations for hours with ELIZA. ELIZA would type, "How are you feeling today?" And I would respond, "I'm feeling crummy." And ELIZA would come back, "Well, why are you feeling crummy?" And I would say, "Well, because I had a fight with my best friend." And ELIZA would say, "Well, how did that make you feel?" And so it was like that. It was like the most annoying, ultimately, conversation with a therapist that one could have. However, as a 10-year-old kid, I was fascinated by this idea that we could encapsulate the behavior of humans in computers. And it really set me on a path to computing and also, ultimately, AI. My educational background, my academic background is biophysics and computer science. So I was at Berkeley and also studied computer science at the University of Washington, and ultimately went into product management after that first job in AI. Went to work actually in the AI team for Eric Schmidt at Sun Microsystems, and then became a product manager. And that led to founding multiple companies. But the path led back to AI and to the work that I'm doing today, which I feel like is the most interesting from a technology and science standpoint, and also the most impactful potential for impact of everything I've worked on, including Java.
That's really interesting to me that you were a product manager for Java, right?
Yeah.
It seems like this is a role where, especially on a product that big, like you would have to do a lot of synthesis work and coordination. And it makes me wonder if people who have experiences like that, working with and managing teams of people and, trying to anticipate everything from like what engineers are going to do to consumer needs and so on, like you might be predisposed to thinking about collective intelligence. So looking back, does it feel connected to your interest in collective intelligence today?
It's such an interesting question, and I hadn't really connected those dots. But you're absolutely right, because as a product manager, you have all of the responsibility, but none of the delegation authority. Like people don't report to you. You're the manager of the product, not the team.
Yeah.
And so you have to figure out what is the technical definition, what are the features, what's the go-to-market strategy, what about the branding, what about the channel partnership strategy, the whole thing is up to you. And oftentimes you have strengths in different areas of those disciplines, maybe not all of them. And so you're constantly going out and talking to a whole lot of people and learning and synthesizing and then balancing different beliefs on the team about where should this product go. In the case of Java, it was a really big challenge. It was called Oak at the time, and we were trying to figure out how to get it out to the world. And it was too early. It was before the web. It was before there were smartphones or set-top boxes. And so it was very, very difficult. And ultimately, after going out and talking to a whole lot of people and getting a bunch of data about where is the information superhighway, and we need to create a whole new go-to-market approach, but that would never have happened without synthesizing all of this insight and getting a bunch of data and, balancing a lot of very, very strong opinions about where to take this.
You're telling me Java used to be called Oak?
Yes.
You're kidding.
Yes, that was the code name. And
so then where did Java come from?
So Java came from because it was my responsibility to name this thing.
You named Java?
Presence of a luminary.
That's amazing.
I knew that this was a very important decision to the team. And so I organized 2 brainstorming sessions and then wrote a bunch of things on the whiteboard, like waking up the web, bringing the web to life, because that's what we were doing. And we got on a coffee and caffeine riff. And out of that, Java emerged. It was one of several names. And I chose Java because I felt it was the best. Yeah. Eric Schmidt gave the thumbs up and it became the name.
Wow.
So
legendary. Cool. Legendary. Amazing. Yeah.
But it was a collective intelligence exercise, the entire thing.
Exactly.
That team also was comprised not just of engineers, but artists and, designers, people that were really thinking broadly.
Can you tell us a little bit more about what you're doing right now, the CrowdSmartAI and the Common Good AI?
Yes.
Yes. We'd love to hear about it.
So this is a new approach to AI. So all of the focus over the last few years since large language models came out has been on learning from data, using AI to learn from data. So massive amounts of content, using large language models to synthesize and find patterns in that content, and then individuals asking questions of the AI. Incredibly powerful, amazing, breakthroughs and phenomenal productivity tool. However, there's a whole other way to use AI. There are many other ways to use AI, one of which is to use AI to help humans actually collectively problem solve and learn from each other, and also collectively learn from data, but interacting with each other. And we can use AI to do that at scale. So here's the challenge in real life. If you've ever been in a room with a really good human facilitator, they're great at finding alignment, what's resonating, asking open-ended questions, encouraging the quiet voices, encouraging productive friction. The challenge is after about 15 or 20 people in a room, it's just the communication complexity problem is off the charts. But that's a perfect problem for AI. So what we can do is actually build new forms of AI that act like the best human facilitators, that encourage us to ask and answer open-ended questions, to surface insights that often are buried, often because of all sorts of incentives that sort of run against saying what you really think. It might be organizational, hierarchical, whatever. biases that come into play.
Definitely.
Well, AI can basically eliminate all those challenges.
Right.
And what the AI also is really, really good at is managing these multiple lines of communication.
Right.
So there's something called Brooks' Law, which says that ultimately you start to get exponential complexity once you have more than a few people. So
Oh,
3
absolutely.
people is 3 lines of communication. 10 people is 45 lines of communication. 20 people is almost 200 lines of communication. And managing all of those different perspectives, well, again, perfect problem for AI.
Right.
So this is a new approach to AI that is using AI to both facilitate how humans collaborate and ideate and use their productive friction and their insights and their experience and their diverse perspectives to align on an actionable path forward or the best decision about a complex problem or a compendium of knowledge about something that is evolving constantly. You want to keep evolving that knowledge. But that's basically what this is. It's a new approach to AI, using AI to help humans learn from each other and facilitate that process.
Can you tell us a little bit more about the AI side of this? When you describe CrowdSmart as a different approach, are you still building on the technology that we know from foundation models like ChatGPT, or is the tech underneath it something distinct?
It certainly builds on and leverages what's going on with LLM. So we're using transformer models to, instead of making sense of existing static data, we're making sense of this conversation that's happening between humans. And so we're creating vectorized, essentially knowledge models and using the transformer models to learn semantic meaning from what people are saying. So you start to identify themes. The transformer models are starting to identify themes. And then the AI, this new approach to AI is using a set of algorithms. There's something called hidden Markov models and Bayesian belief networks. And there's a whole set of approaches that are basically identifying what do we know, what have we surfaced about the knowledge about this particular topic or decision or problem we're trying to solve, and then encouraging that productive friction by surfacing diverse insights, enabling people to rank each other's insights and respond to other people's ideas, enabling people to disagree, change their mind. Systems constantly prompting for the whys behind what you think. It's not just about what you think, but why do you think that? What led you to believe that? And all of that conversation is actually being turned into a private language model, essentially a collective mind of the group.
Of the group.
Yeah.
And with nothing coming from outside the group, it's all training on things just
just within the group. You can bring in optionally other data. You can actually incorporate agents that can bring knowledge about particular topics or fact check or whatever. But really the core of this is deliberation between humans.
Wow.
Knowledge sharing.
So it really feels like you're kind of drawing out the intelligence that was already sort of in the groups, in the organization.
Exactly.
But you're using these, as you say, superhuman facilitators, these AIs, to make these kinds of insights that are oftentimes inscrutable just because of the combinatorial issues. Like, as you were saying, when you have just even a moderate number of humans in the same room, the number of lines of conversation that can happen there, it just explodes. So what's really interesting about this is the idea that it's not so much the AI that's generating the intelligence.
No.
It's the human beings that are generating the intelligence, right? It's just that the AI is able to pick up on, through its superhuman machine powers, the patterns that are in the conversations, and being able to coordinate people, connect people, all of these kinds of things. And maybe these things were not possible before, only because of the immense complexity of the organization.
That is it.
Right.
That's exactly it.
I think what's interesting to me here is the question of what kinds of social structures and dynamics establish the conditions for people to speak up, in the first place. Like, even before you're talking about the scale of a really big organization, I'm thinking even small group dynamics can be problematic, right? So part of what this seems designed to do is let people contribute without maybe the threat of social penalty.
That's exactly right. One thing I didn't mention is, to your point, identities are masked, so you don't know who's saying what. And that really encourages transparency. And this is a best practice of the science of collective intelligence. Also, diversity of thought is a best practice. And diversity of the the participants, and diversity in
Right.
every sense: cognitive diversity, life experience, age, perspectives,
Yeah.
expertise. But the fact that identities are masked, to your point, really encourages people to say what they think. It also this approach to AI actively resists trolling or attempts to game the conversation, because people are constantly ranking, upvoting, or responding to ideas that they like. And so the ones that are trying to game or, troll always fall immediately to the bottom.
Right.
Because instead of optimizing for attention, which is what social media does, which encourages the trolls, this is optimizing for common ground and serendipitous breakthroughs, new ideas, diverse perspectives. And so that optimizing for common ground and diverse ideas just that eliminates naturally the attempt for people to hijack.
Yeah, it does seem to me like a naive view of collective intelligence might just be about like taking the average of everybody's opinions.
No.
And what you end up with is very bland.
That's exactly right.
Boring, maybe insight, but not really something that, is going to be exciting. The exciting stuff is going to live in the outliers, right?
That's exactly right.
At the extremes of the distribution. And we want to make sure that we're honoring those kinds of minority, kind of sometimes really out there viewpoints, because those have a chance of being really productive and being really brilliant.
In the classroom context, this happens all the time, where somebody might say, "Oh, it's too out there," and I always say it, and every day it's the most brilliant thing somebody said that week.
Yeah,
but there's no convincing them. Like, say the thing that you think is out there, right?
And that can shift the conversation a whole new direction. That suddenly uncovers a new insight and aha in someone else, and that's productive friction, and also encouraging serendipity. It's encouraging serendipity, and that's so important.
I think serendipity is such a fascinating thing, because it's like, you find it when you are not searching for it, right? It sort of comes up in these surprising ways.
Yeah.
And maybe if you're too focused on searching for something, you might miss the serendipitous thing because it doesn't fit into your framework, right?
Yeah, that's right. And what it's doing is it's learning, and it's listening, and it's learning from the humans. So to your points, both of you, the AI is not making the decision or having a serendipitous thought.
Right.
It is orchestrating the communication between the humans to encourage, to have the best chances of those serendipitous thoughts emerging.
Why should we care about collective intelligence, right? Why do we want the insights of an organization? Can you speak to that?
Yes. Well, think about the current approach to AI, which again is incredibly powerful, but it's just one piece. And what it does is it learns from existing data. So imagine if someone said, "I know everything about you because I've read everything that you've ever written." Or listen to everything you've ever said, and therefore I don't really need to interact with you anymore because I already know, there's no point in us having a conversation or ever getting together in real life or being part of a group. That's ridiculous. Obviously, we're so much more. What lives in our brains, our experiences in life, our ability to make these aha connections in our minds, our ability to interact with each other and then have new insights emerge, that only comes from the interaction of humans and from learning from living real live humans, which is different from learning from existing data. That's just one piece of, advancing human knowledge. Advancing human knowledge really depends on, in a major way, learning from living humans and who are interacting with each other and with ideas. And when you think about it, collective intelligence is how humanity has evolved throughout, millennia. And everything that we've done has been a collective ideation, interaction, trial and error, disagreements, ahas, breakthroughs, together as groups.
So are there examples that you can share of applications of this collective intelligence technology that it sounds like your work is really focused on? Are there examples that you would like to share with the audience? We'd love to hear them.
Yeah, there's so many. And you can imagine any organization that's trying to solve a problem, make a decision, advance their mission, could benefit from collective intelligence, the collective intelligence of their stakeholders and a broader world. And the stakeholders meaning their employees, their team, their customers, their partners. So some examples, there's sort of categories. One is organizations, companies. For example, a company called Alera. This is a big insurance roll-up, a roll-up of over 150 insurance companies, a private equity acquisition. They rolled up all these insurance private, brokers, and then made one insurance company. And the CEO realized there's all this embedded knowledge in all these offices and all the teams, the people that work in all these different geographies about what's working, what's not. And we need to create a unified culture. So we need to drive, a unified revenue model, right? And so there's a whole new set of challenges. So the first question was, what are the challenges? What are the issues that you're seeing? What are the problems, right? Because people always can see what's not working. They can see what's possible, but what's not working.
Right.
And so once that open-ended exchange happened among all of the different employees, suddenly all these insights came up to the CEO. And where that CEO might have thought, oh, this is the path forward, now suddenly there's new information emerging. So that's one example.
And what does that look like? Like how the process works of getting
what's
that
the user
information. What is,
experience?
thank you. That's the word I was looking for.
Exactly.
User experience.
Open-ended question. What do you think is working well, and what do you think we could improve at this company?
And they type it or they speak it?
And then they type it, and it's asynchronous. Identities are masked. All the ideas that come to mind, just stream of consciousness, whatever comes to mind. What are all the ideas? Now submit. Now you start to see other people's ideas, small groups of other people's ideas. And that small group of ideas, it could be, like seven people's ideas max, because that's about as much as you can consume. Well, those are optimized. Each set that you see is optimized for what might resonate with you, but also what might challenge you.
Right.
Again, what the best human facilitators are doing. And now you're presented with the opportunity to rank those ideas, click on the ones that resonate. If none do, skip, you get another group, another 7, skip, get another 7, skip. So you're doing this ranking, responding to other people's ideas. And the system is on the back end essentially doing this massive parallel A/B test, because the trade-offs, there's a lot of insight to be gained by just your being forced to say, hey, I think this is a great idea, not so much this other idea. And as you have a lot of people doing that in parallel, suddenly now insights are starting to emerge from the group. And again, a key sort of secret sauce here is that everyone is seeing a different, unique, customized view based on what might resonate, but also what might challenge. And that is so key, because that's about introducing productive friction.
And they're asked to say why.
Why. It's always about, why do you think this? And then others are seeing those reasons and then responding. Now someone's going, yes, you know what? I saw that too.
Right.
And I had an idea about how we might solve that. And now that's starting to enter the conversation. Someone else is responding to that going, that's an interesting idea. That might work if we tweaked it this way, And someone else comes in and says, you know what? I'm not so sure, but what about this different approach?
Right.
And suddenly now you're building this computational model of the collective mind of the group that is preserving everything that everyone has said. And so it's also explainable, it's auditable. You know how you reach that decision, which is very different from the existing approach, which is, we don't know how the LLMs came up with that answer.
Yeah, exactly.
It might or might not be true. But in this case, it is fully explainable, and it is essentially an auditable, queryable computational model of the collective mind of the group that is constantly evolving as people are interacting with each other.
I have goosebumps right now because I'm like, this is the pedagogical tool that I need in a seminar classroom in 2026 that I have never had before.
Yes.
Because that's the key. It's so hard to be able to identify. What I want to see is, I want to see them making connections between something that we talked about a week ago and now something somebody else said. And often they are not self-aware. None of us are. Sometimes it's like, oh, I just thought of this thing, right?
That's right.
And that might have come from a random sequence of people you talked to previously.
That's right.
I mean, that would be incredible to be able to make the genealogy of that thought visible. Like, especially, making learning visible to students as iteration and revision of their ideas rather than product or like a performance of competence. So it seems like something like this could really surface the trail of intellectual development that no one instructor could realistically audit by themselves too.
I get excited about this because I think this has the potential, this approach, using AI in this new way, has the potential to really advance civilization towards a new enlightenment. We don't have to go down this dark path of giving our lives over to the AI overlords.
Right.
There is a different way. and it's all about harnessing what makes us most human.
I want to pause on that because I think what makes us most human in this context seems to be the ability to give our reasons and respond reflectively to other people's reasons in our own voice, right? And actually learn something about how other people frame the problem as opposed to thinking about like responding, adversarially to it. And so it also sounds like, unlike a stereotypical chatbot of today, that this system is never going to tell the user, oh, your idea is so brilliant and deep and nuanced, when it actually isn't, because what this is doing is surfacing how other patterns and how other people in the group actually responded with their human brains to one another, right? It's not like engaging with them in this one-on-one way, being sycophantic.
Yeah, that does not happen. So that's one example. This is an organization. You can imagine all the different companies. We also, Guitar Center is another.
Tell us about that. Because after you talked about it last time, I took my kids to Guitar Center and I was like, this is amazing. And I'm going to sign them up for lessons now. So
love it. So new CEO came in, again, a private equity acquisition. New CEO comes in. Oftentimes it's interesting because private equity creates the opportunity to kind of blank slate. What would we do new and different? So there can be not so good outcomes with private equity, but there can be some interesting, positive ones as well. And so that's not a pattern necessarily, but I just find it interesting. So new CEO came in and he said, you know what, the insights about the Guitar Center of the future, like the Guitar Center of our dreams, will come from our stakeholders, from our employees, from the students who take classes, the musicians, the broader community, our, everybody, the customers. And so I want to learn what they think about what they dream about the Guitar Center of the future could be. And this is a beloved brand. And it's also a real important hub in many communities because people go there and take music classes and musicians, meet each other and so forth. Anyway, so they got some really interesting insights that have informed the direction of really central strategic decisions around guiding the path forward for Guitar Center. And it is all about listening and learning from the people who know best and who care most.
That also, you would need to have somebody in place. You need to have a leader who is willing to hear things that they don't necessarily want to hear.
That's exactly right.
And change their own vision that they might be bringing in.
That's right. And then a third example I'll give is NATO. So NATO is an interesting organization. They've got challenges, obviously, integrating all sorts of different perspectives because they've got multiple different cultures, languages, and so forth. So 32 different member nations. You've got a lot of intelligence that's often embedded deep in the organization, at the edges of the organization, sometimes outside the organization. And in a command and control environment, that often doesn't filter up.
Right.
So, some line employee or very low-level employee might have that insight, have identified a risk that, has not filtered back up. So this is a system that really surfaces those insights, encourages transparent communication, and allows these serendipitous ideas and also insights about risks to filter up immediately to the top. And they've been using it to improve decision accuracy, to come up with new innovations, to respond to terrible, evolutions on the battlefield, and it's been really, it's led to some breakthroughs for NATO.
I'm really thinking we need to use this thing in the CSU.
I know.
Honestly,
can you imagine?
Because what it sounds like is like these issues in NATO are exactly the sort of organizational issues that we see in the CSU, where you have
NATO might be, a bit more broad, extreme. I don't know.
Higher stakes. Is
higher
that what
stakes
you mean?
is what I mean.
Higher education's a pretty big deal.
That's true.
And I care a lot about it. And I see a lot of misunderstanding and miscommunication, which can happen
so much
because there are different levels of stakeholders. We have students, we have faculty, we have staff, we have administration, we have the chancellor's office. And all of these different levels have different priorities, different value systems. And sometimes there can be conflict.
Yes.
And when a problem comes along, like for example, enrollment issues, for example, that are not just hitting the CSU, it's hitting all of higher education. There are different responses at the different levels of how we should solve this problem.
Yes.
And there can be butting heads.
Right.
And it would be wonderful if there could be a tool like CrowdSmartAI or something along these lines, which could draw on the collective intelligence of the entire CSU as an organization and surface insights which could help us navigate this enrollment decline, this demographic cliff that we're facing, and do it smartly and do it in a way that's going to make us stronger, hopefully.
Also, just being able to like show people then transparently, well, then here, if the conclusion, so if there's, let's say, a strategic plan that is the result that comes out of this process of deliberation, I imagine, to be able to then go and say, well, here's why the thing you said, you could go back and look and audit it and say, here's why the thing I suggested wasn't going to work.
Right.
Like that alone, that never happens.
Yeah.
I think another obstacle that I think we found in just the collectivity of our two brains in working on this podcast is that sometimes there can be miscommunication because we come from very different disciplinary backgrounds. Right?
Yes, exactly.
Sarah's, I've said this many times, that Sarah, she studied comp lit, she's a humanist and so deeply embedded in that world. And I'm a mathematician, deeply embedded in a very different culture. Even though we both went through academia, we both got, high degrees in education and all of that. We speak different languages oftentimes.
Yes.
We think in very different ways.
Right.
And what we've always felt is that there's this promise of AI to sort of give us a translation tool.
Yeah.
A way of translating ideas that are in her discipline into the language of mathematics so that it's more legible to somebody like me.
Right.
And vice versa.
Yes.
Right. And we found that was a really incredible possible use case. And I think it's been really productive for our collaboration.
Yes.
Totally.
I'm wondering how this could scale out to larger organizations, not just duos, but like thinking about like 20 people or in an organization or even larger, that sort of thing.
Yes. What you're talking about is bringing to mind the fact that it's building on top of the valuable uses of LLMs. Like there's some interesting diplomatic translation of the way people say things, right?
Yeah.
And that can be another way that you bring that approach in. But this does, to your point, from the standpoint of a learning environment, this is essentially a learning management system, a knowledge management system. There's something called knowledge management back in the 90s, and it sort of fell out of favor. But this really is a new form of knowledge management and evolution, not just management, but really knowledge evolution. And it's scalable to any number of people. So that's also very different from old approaches to knowledge management. So you can have thousands of people across a campus or an organization, even tens of thousands of people interacting using this system, interacting with each other, responding to each other's ideas, always saying why they think what they think. And again, because the AI, this is such a perfect problem for AI can handle all of those multiple lines of communication. It's infinitely scalable. And it's not using a ton of energy because there's no pre-training. So we don't need to build big data centers and nuclear power plants.
So we've been talking a lot about how companies can use AI to help support practices of collective decision-making.
Right.
You're also the founder of a nonprofit that applies this technology to deliberative democracy. Can you tell us a bit about that and what's happening in the not-for-profit space?
So what had happened was a lot of people were coming to us and saying, we can't talk to each other anymore at our city council meetings or school board meetings, but we have problems in our community and decisions in our local cities that we need to make. We don't have a choice. We need to make decisions. We need to be able to find common ground. So could we use this approach? And so we founded Common Good AI. We're now working actually in partnership with the citizen assembly movement. And citizen assemblies are really interesting. They're like citizen juries. It's a self-organized. It's been happening around the world for about a decade in different cities, different countries. And citizens get together, people in a local city, community will get together over a series of weekends. And it's all randomly chosen. It represents the ideological and political and demographic perspectives of that community. And then they actually come up with a set of decisions or priorities about whatever the topic was. There was recently one in Bend, Oregon on homelessness. This group of citizens came together. It's usually about 20 or 30 people over a series of weekends. They get paid a stipend. They meet in a hotel room somewhere. And then after 2 or 3 months, they actually came up with a prioritized set of recommendations about what to do about homelessness.
This sounds like what elected officials are supposed to
Yes,
be doing, right?
exactly. And it really is taking into our hands, into our own hands, the work that is not being done too often because of stymied political systems. So what we're doing now, the challenge, of course, with citizen assemblies, it doesn't scale, right? And also you have all the biases that can come into play, and being face-to-face and quiet voices maybe don't get heard or whatever. I will say, they're incredibly effective, and they're showing the way of what's possible. So now the question is, how do we scale this? How do we make it possible for an entire city to participate in this kind of process? And so at Common Good AI, we're working hand in hand with the citizen assembly movement. Again, it's there's no one in charge, it's decentralized, but in a bunch of different cities. So there's a new initiative launching in South Carolina now called American Forum, and it's going to be actually happening in 3 states. It's happening in first South Carolina, then Nevada, and then New Hampshire. And it is, again, working in partnership with the citizen assembly teams in those states, a combination of in-person gatherings and then these virtual engagements. And anyone can sign up to participate in those different states and cities throughout the state. And that combination of in-person and virtual is very powerful because oftentimes going into a meeting, before you gather, you can really prioritize what is important to the group already. Right. And now you're together and you've already found common ground and maybe some breakthrough ideas. Then in real space, there's real magic to being together.
Right.
And then you leave and you are able to synthesize what happened in that gathering and take it to a whole new level and bring other people in. And so those engagements have been very encouraging, because it's helping people realize, wow, this is possible. We can we can achieve breakthroughs and find a path forward together, even though we thought we disagreed so violently. So what we're seeing already is people are finding common ground and realizing, I don't hate you just because you voted for the other guy.
Yeah.
And I actually realize I have so much more in common with you. And we together care about a whole lot of things. We care about more, we have more in common than we have that we disagree about. Yeah. And so that already we're seeing that happen in multiple different engagements. There are multiple tools now that are starting to emerge in this area of deliberative tech.
I think one really provocative thing that you said that's going to get people's juices flowing is the idea of the collective itself as being a kind of mind.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
I love that, right? That's definitely my lane. And how I love thinking about minds at various levels of organization. Can you just say a little bit more about that? Maybe try to convince the more skeptical in our audience that we really should think of an organization, for example, as being a kind of mind that's unique and different than just this person, that person, that person, that. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Yeah. Something.
I do.
Yeah.
I do. And this is, to me, this is the essence of what we're talking about. It's the ability to actually tap into the insights and the latent knowledge, the tacit knowledge, the experiences that we've had in life, and surface that in a way we've never been able to do at scale. And so the AI, in this case, again, is being the facilitator, but it is helping us share what we know and believe and encouraging that productive friction to enable ideas to emerge and patterns that we might start to see, to share that with somebody else. And suddenly now you're creating a whole new computational model that is based on the collective insights of humans. And it is constantly evolving. It's not static. It is, as people continue to interact with each other and with these ideas, they are advancing this computational model of the collective mind. And you can query it. I mean, this it is a queryable, it's a private language model that is queryable. And so you can actually go back and look at, what do we get right? What do we get wrong? You can ask questions of that collective mind. And it's just us. It's not the AI. It's not the AI's mind. Right. It's our mind. And as surfaced by, the best, highest practices of really great facilitators.
Amazing. So, what have you been thinking about since we last talked to Kim?
First, I was thinking I really want to be in one of these organizations for a day to try this thing out for myself.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, we haven't even tried this product, this CrowdSmart AI thing, right? We've never actually done it.
Yeah, neither of us work for NATO, sadly.
Right.
But yeah, I was trying to think about ways we could use something like this as Cal State faculty. We were at a meeting recently where we were both reporting out with two other people from the same meeting, and our reports were so different. It was like we had different experiences of the meeting we were reporting out from. It was like academic Senate Rashomon.
Wait, what?
You know, the classic, you've seen this, the Kurosawa film that tells the story, the same story
yeah,
from multiple perspectives.
Right. That's a really fabulous movie, right? Doesn't it have like the dead guy's... Oh, wait, spoiler alert? Doesn't it have the dead guy's ghost testified through a medium or something like that?
Yeah, that's the one. Well, so after the interview, I asked ChatGPT, what if Rashomon ended with an AI adjudication board and it was like, here are your areas of agreement, here are the key elements underlying the disagreement in your stories. And it said, then Rashomon would stop being a film about irreducible human opacity and become a film about procedural reconciliation. The AI board would treat contradiction not as the tragic condition of testimony, but as a data set to be harmonized.
Why is that funny? I mean, that's exactly what the AI would do, right? It would harmonize the testimonies.
Are you saying that you think human opacity is not irreducible?
No, I didn't say that.
I remember it differently.
Okay. Sick Rashomon reference, bro. Dude, your Rashomon references are out of control. Everybody knows that.
Your pop culture meme references are out of control.
Okay. See you next time on the next episode of My Robot Teacher.
Wait. No, for real. I do want to hear your takeaways about the interview with Kim.
Oh, you do?
Yes, I do. I'm very curious.
Okay. I actually see a real connection between CrowdSmart AI, the product that we were talking about here today on this episode, and the project that we talked about on the last episode of My Robot Teacher, the Digital Democracy Project.
Oh, yeah.
The way I see it is that one thing that AI is allowing humans to do now is to create a kind of synthetic or machine attention. I talked a little bit about this in the conclusion of that last episode. I mentioned the attention economy and the idea that now that we are so pummeled by so much information, it's our attention that becomes the bottleneck for processing all of that information. I think of both of these projects, both CrowdSmart AI and the Digital Democracy Project, as about creating and directing a machine intelligence, sure, but also a machine attention toward important causes that kind of escape human attention because of issues around our finite nature,
right,
our bounded rationality. So I guess I think of the Digital Democracy Project as making legible the Kafkaesque proceedings of state and local government, while at the same time with CrowdSmart, it's about dealing with the combinatorial explosion of conversations that can exist in a group of people.
Wait, what's combinatorial explosion mean?
Okay, so you remember that Subway ad in which there was this enormous number of possible $5 footlong orders? Maybe I'm misremembering.
I said, your pop culture meme references are out of control, but also, yes, like you can have lettuce and tomato and lettuce and mustard and lettuce and onion.
Oh, very good.
But you can also have tomato and mustard and tomato and onion. Yeah,
exactly.
Okay.
All of that optionality, even though we're talking about a finite system here, causes the number of possibilities to just explode. That's combinatorial explosion. It's like when people say the number of possible chess games exceeds the number of subatomic particles in the observable universe. That's sort of, again, a kind of combinatorial explosion. And I think of machine attention as being something which can overcome human limitations around this kind of combinatorial explosion. It can solve this problem for us and deal with the massive numbers of, for example, conversations that can happen even in moderately sized organizations.
Interesting.
So then I begin to think about how all of this might be relevant for pedagogy, for what we do in the classroom, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how this idea of machine attention could be implemented in a pedagogical context.
Right. The reason I was like, ooh, I think I just got an idea. I typically teach seminar classes. They're capped at 25. Like, that's small by Cal State standards, but it's also like a pretty big seminar class. And it means that when I'm going around the room, like observing and engaging with groups, when I'm having them do group work, sometimes I notice that as soon as I talk to a group, like I have to go back and be like, put your phone away, focus on this, don't do your, navigation homework in my class, please. Right. I would love to have like more the kind of accountability you have in your class where they're all up on the whiteboard solving problems right
Yeah.
now in your flipped classroom. And so I'm thinking an interesting example of how to like deploy this in a classroom might be to have every student sit down and do a one-on-one conversation with other students in the class. And then they can either like elect to record the conversation and copy the transcript into a Google Doc, or they could free write if they didn't want to record their voices to document what like evidence of the discussion the two of them had. And there might be some really cool insights that they would have one-on-one that they're not comfortable sharing with the entire class or even a group, right?
Yeah.
But that's a lot. That's like a grading nightmare.
That is a lot. Like if you had 20 people in your class, you would have 20 times 19 divided by 2 number of 190 conversation. Quick math.
Yeah.
And if you
Good
just
job.
increase that to 25 people, just add 5 more people, I think it gets to be 300 conversations.
Yeah, that is a lot of conversations to manage. And
It
so
is.
this actually might really be a cool way of solving this problem of end of semester. We're a month out from the end of the semester as we're recording this right now. And it's like, how do I keep them attentive on what's happening? And that's, I think, a really cool thing. And then it could also, I am imagining the AI digest of all of these like conversational relics could also, it would be interesting to have the class then go in and reflect on what are the common things that people are discussing, what are the outliers, and then do a bit of like synthesis work around that.
Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. I'm going to do that.
There is also a logistical aspect of this, which is kind of nightmare sounding, which is figuring out how you're going to pair everybody for these various rounds of conversation, right?
Oh my God, totally.
But guess what we can use now in order to solve that exact logistical problem?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay.
AI will absolutely crush that problem.
Trying this in my class tomorrow. I'm very excited.
You are? Okay. Yeah.
I am. I'm going to why not? It sounds super fun. And,
It really does.
what a cool experiment.
It really does. Yeah.
And I think it's a case of like, actually, this is something that would be really, really pedagogically good for my students. But the thing that's stopping me from doing it is that it would be an astronomical amount of work for me to do to read all of those things myself.
Yeah.
But the point is that what we're going to do is put that like raw material of the conversations into ChatGPT and then have the students analyze the output and then say in real time, does this represent what we talked about in our pair? It's a new kind of think, pair, share.
You know what we're going to use on this? We're going to use a transcription program to transcribe the conversation. You have to get permission. Make sure you get students' permission to do this, okay?
So I will I think I've mentioned this before, I will with their permission, of course, I'll say I'd like to record this conversation that we're having. And then ChatGPT will make a digest you can go back to and you can tell me, we'll go over it together. So you can say, does this represent you accurately? So then I'm also modeling the process of like, let's go through it and confirm.
Okay.
The thing I was going to say is, and this is going to speak to my tendency to immediately imagine the worst case scenario and then have to entertain it in my head, that the very thing that makes this exciting to me is also what makes this technology potentially dangerous, because I am talking about using this, yes, as a pedagogical tool, but also in a sense as a surveillance tool. Like this is going to allow me better to gauge how my students are participating and also to make them participate more, because now they're accountable to just one other person and they have to document what they both said in this conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas like before, maybe they would get away with saying 2 or 3 things in class that were well-timed and then I couldn't call on everybody, right?
Sure.
I guess I'm thinking that a tool that helps an institution hear insights better can also help an institution police its members better, right? Like if you're thinking about this as a map of, human collective thinking or think collected thinking maybe, the same map that's going to reveal the buried insights within an organization is also going to reveal your buried opposition. And so I think any democratic promise here depends on the politics of it, like the governance and the access and transparency and who's consenting and whether you're going to treat the dissenting opinions as knowledge to help inform good decision making or as documentation of like a threat to your power regime.
Yeah, make a burn list, right? A burn book. Right.
But yeah, I guess ultimately, right, does a tool like this, when used, used for deliberative democracy, does it create protected space for individuals to speak up and contribute more? Or could it just be used as a more elegant mechanism for managerial intelligence gathering, right? I think Kim speaks to this when she says that part of what CrowdSmart and Common Good AI are doing is trying to think about how you could use this in a way that was not to entrench power, but rather to help organizations actually like better pay attention to the insights of people who don't have as much power in an organization. So
yeah, I think this kind of analysis of upside and downside, there are going to be upsides and downsides of really every technological advancement that happens, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it was true about something as innocent as writing, right? Writing can be used for good or for evil.
Very true. Or right, the same thing that allows you to document things also exposes you to being read by various systems. Yes.
Sure.
As the taker of Senate minutes for years, I am like keenly aware of this.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the pedagogical context too, is making sure that we're teaching students to think critically about how the same systems that can surface insight might also be used to repress insight. That awareness is part of the literacy of like how technology can be used.
Absolutely.
Thanks for listening. My Robot Teacher is hosted by me, Sarah Senk.
And me, Taiyo Inoue. And it's produced by Edit Audio.
Special thanks to the California Education Learning Lab for sponsoring this podcast. If this episode got you thinking, please pass it on. Share it with a colleague, a dean, or that faculty listserv where people won't stop talking about AI.
See you next time.